Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, July 28th edition of the MMA OB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'm joined by my buddy here, Cole Shelton, to recap UFC Fight Island 4, actually, or 3, no, UFC Fight Island 3, recap Bellator 242, but of course, we're here to preview Derek Brunson versus Edmen Shahbazyan UFC Fight Night this Saturday. It's going to be a great event, I think, as usual. But got some breaking news off the top, Cole. We got to talk about it, man. Breaking news. It's 10 a.m. here, Toronto time, and we just got the news from Dana White. He revealed it to CNN, of all places. Khabib Nurmagomedov will fight Justin Gaethje on October 24th. No date or no location has been announced. We obviously have the date now. No other details have been announced, though. So very fresh. Obviously, Khabib is still dealing with the death of his father very recently, but man, he wants to get in there this quick. I'm surprised, Cole. I'll be honest. I thought he wouldn't fight till like next year. So, guy's a beast, man. I mean, all the credit in the world to Khabib for getting in there and fighting Gaethje. It's going to be a great fight. Just thoughts on the news this morning.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd be seeing Khabib at all in 2020. I thought we'd probably be seeing him February, March. He'd be coming back, but this is a phenomenal fight. So I guess obviously it would have been. I am surprised that he is coming back this soon. I just thought him and his dad were so close. Like his dad was his main coach. Like he told him his whole game plan. And then he shared with Javier Mendez what his dad told him to do. So like I am surprised he's come back this soon. I know he probably only has a couple more fights left. I know for a while he always said 30, like 30-0, he'll retire. So maybe it's Gaethje one more. I think this is Khabib's toughest test. Gaethje, we're finally going to see Gaethje's wrestling. Because that's something he doesn't use. We're going to see how good his takedown defense is or how good his offensive wrestling is. Maybe Gaethje just flips the gameplay and takes down Khabib. No one's ever really done that, but it's a great fight. 2 pay-per-views in October and have this as one of the headliners is just great. You go from DC Stipe in August, Adesanya Cost in September, Khabib Gaethje in October. Like that's a great start to pay-per-view main events.
For sure. And again, this fight was supposed to take place at UFC 253 in September, but it's going to be pushed back just over a month. We actually have odds for this fight, Cole. We've had them for like maybe 2 months now since Ferguson lost to Gaethje. Right now we have Khabib minus 235, Gaethje plus 195. I expect the number to go down on Gaethje. I think a lot of people are going to put their money on Justin Gaethje in this fight. I'll be honest, Cole. I think he's got a really good chance to win this fight. I don't know who I pick yet officially. I think I've picked a Khabib in like every fight he's ever had in the UFC, but this is a really different fight for him, and Gaethje's look incredible. So just any thoughts on those fights, Cole, before we get into the bulk of today's show?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Khabib close at like a minus 160, like the minus 150 to minus 170 range. So I think right now I would bet on Gaethje. I wouldn't bet Khabib at that price. I think if you're supporting Khabib, I think you wait till close to the fight because I think a lot of money can come on Gaethje just because he has a pretty big fan base. Everyone talks about his wrestling. He has knockout. Like he has legit one punch on power. All he needs to do is land one punch. So I think the odds are going to shrink a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely feel like Khabib should be favored. Obviously, he's unbeaten. He's the champion. He's an amazing fighter, man. But I just feel like stylistically, this is a really intriguing fight. So I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's get into the show. Like I said, we'll start with the recaps, and then we'll go to the preview later on. Hopefully some more fans tune in to today's show. And we'll do UFC on ESPN 14 first, Cole. So card took place on Saturday, obviously 15 fights, which ties the UFC record from UFC 2. But in modern day, it's the most fights on any card. That card obviously had many tournaments on it. So long night, Cole. But the thing is, the pacing was good, I felt, as far as the broadcast goes, because it was just like fight, bang, fight, bang. You know, it was great. Like there was no like breaks between the fights for the most part. So I love the pacing. And overall, I think it was a pretty good card. Like some really good finishes, obviously. I'll be honest, Cole, I didn't really enjoy the main event that much. I felt like it wasn't the most exciting fight. Some people are calling it technical, cool. Dana White, I heard he said he didn't seem to enjoy it that much either. I'm not saying I hated the fight. It's like a chess match kind of fight, but I was hoping for a little bit more. It's just like Till's able to drag guys into these kind of like low output fights. And Whittaker obviously edges out the decision here in the main event, Cole. 48-47, all 3 judges' scorecards. I also thought Whittaker won. However, I thought he won the last 4 rounds. And I picked Darren Till. I thought he only won the first round. I mean, maybe you could give him, like a lot of people gave him the 4th round. It was a close round. I'll have to watch. I mean, I really don't want to watch the fight again because I didn't really enjoy it. But maybe at some point I'll check it out again. But the truth is, what does a rewatch matter anyways as far as scoring a fight goes? You only get one chance to score a fight and watch it live. You know, judges only get one chance to watch it too. So what's the point of being like, okay, I'm gonna go rewatch it? Really, you know, a lot of people say that, but The truth is, Cole, I just felt like Whittaker edged out 4 of the rounds, in at least 3 of them. Till just didn't do enough, man. He just, and this is that was the one thing for me when I went to this fight trying to predict it. I know you picked Whittaker. You said he would dominate the fight, Cole. I mean, I don't think it was domination, man. Even though I do think he won probably 4 rounds, I feel like it was still a competitive fight. It wasn't dominant by any means, in my opinion. Till, obviously, I was wrong about this one. It is what it is. I'm very surprised how many people scored it for Till. Literally half the media had it for Till. I'm very surprised by that. I know he's a popular guy. I think people just kind of let their own like personal feelings towards Till get in impact their scoring call. But as someone who tries to be as completely objective as he can, even though I wanted Till to win because I would have looked smart if he won, I felt like Whittaker won the fight. So just give me your thoughts on the matchup and the scorecards and what the media felt like.
Yeah, I had Whittaker 4-1. I thought Till only won the first round when he knocked him down. You had Whittaker drop Till twice in both rounds. At 1 round if he dropped. It was a close fight than I thought. I just think that's how the way Till fights a lot of guys. Like you see Gaslam, you see Wonderboy. Like he's kind of that. He likes to counter. He doesn't mind that low output fight because he believes if he just gets one, he can probably end the fight. So I think if the fight proved Till is still a top guy at middleweight, but I think I think the problem with him is he doesn't throw enough volume. Like if he were to throw more combinations, more punches, I think he'd have a lot more success. He'd probably have had a better shot at winning this fight. But he just sticks to his whole game plan where let me try to counter you, and then if a fight ends up like that, Whittaker just did more and he gets the win.
Agreed completely, man. Like I said, when I was kind of breaking down the fight and deciding who I was going to pick, the one thing that did stand out to me was the significant strikes landed in Whittaker's favor per minute. And I just felt like Till maybe would have one of those showings where he just showed a lot more, like when he fought Cowboy. It wasn't like that, man. It was just like a Darren Till fight. And, you know, at this point, Cole, I mean, he's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. And I get that they're 2, like, really top-level opponents, obviously Whittaker, Masvidal, Woodley. But, you know, even that Gastelum fight was pretty close. Some people thought that Gastelum won that fight. So, you know, this is a guy that's kind of struggled lately, Cole. And let's be honest, a lot of us didn't think he beat Stephen Thompson either. Like, he could be on a 5-fight losing streak if you thought those decisions went against him. So, obviously, he's fighting top-level guys. I get that, but maybe he's not as good as a lot of people think he is, Cole, you know? And I'll be honest, I've always thought he was overrated, but I keep picking him because I kind of feel like he's waiting to break out every fight. And sometimes he has a great performance, like when he fought Kelvin Gastelum. You know, I picked him there as a dog, and a lot of people didn't think he'd win. And I was like, okay, wow, he looks good at middleweight. And then once again, Cole has this performance where he just doesn't do enough. As far as Whittaker goes, good for him to get back in the win column, Cole. He's 9-1 as a middleweight. I mean, that's pretty great. So he's an awesome fighter. Dana White now saying that the UFC is considering doing Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier for a number 1 contender fight. I think that makes a lot of sense, Cole. Honestly, Cannonier hasn't been out. He hasn't fought in a year now. So since last September when he knocked out Hermanson. I think taking another fight here would actually be a good idea for him. And obviously, we have Adesanya and Costa fighting in September. I don't think the winner of the fight will fight this year. They'll probably fight early next year in like February or March. So I think it's the perfect number 1 contender fight, Cole. What do you think?
Yeah, that's what I did in my column for PJ Fan. I thought it made a lot of sense because you have Costa Adesanya in September. That fight, whoever wins that fight's probably not coming out unscathed. Just the way Costa goes, like it's not going to be like Adesanya Romero where Costa's going to wait. He only knows how to go forward. And Adesanya's going to get hit. He's going to get hit in the counter. So whoever wins that fight's probably going to be out for a while. So say they probably can't turn around till March, April. You're looking at Jared Cannonier not fighting for a year and a half. Like, does he really want to do that? I think depending when Whittaker wants to turn this thing around, maybe do Whittaker Cannonier, a fight night main event, like 5 rounds, do it in like October, November, and then you just set up the winners where you're only a month, 2 months after the title fight. So it even gives the champion more time to recover. And I think that's the way you do it. I think Hermanson did lay out a good game plan that he gets the winner of Whittaker Till, but I just think Cannonier needs another fight, and Cannonier deserves to fight a guy like Whittaker.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Cannonier's look good, obviously, at middleweight. 3-0, 3 finishes. So I think he's up there, but I still feel like, you know, beating Jack Hermanson's a good win. Does it get you a title shot? I don't know. I think he needs one more win. So I think beating Whittaker would be that fight. And for Whittaker, you could give him another title shot. I mean, let's be honest, Cole, he did get smoked by Adesanya, but I feel like he didn't get a lot of respect from the UFC as a former defending champion. He defended his belt a couple times. He didn't really get that, same immediate rematch that a guy like Max Holloway's getting, and he might even get a trilogy fight out of it. So I feel like Whittaker should be there, but probably needs one more win. All right, Co-main event, Shogun Rua against Antonio Rogério Nogueira. Shogun wins a split decision. Close fight call. I honestly thought Nog won the fight. I thought he won the first 2 rounds. It was close, but I feel like if you look at the judges' scorecards, Ben Cartilage scored the second round for Shogun, and that was the deciding round as far as scoring the fight in someone's favor. I think you could have given Shogun the first and third round. I had Nog winning the first and second round, but that second round was clearly Nog's round. I was surprised one of the judges gave it to Shogun. So I think you scored it for Shogun. Obviously, it was a close fight. Just thoughts on the matchup. I thought it was a pretty good fight.
Yeah, Shogun 1-3. Second round was only the clear round. Like, I honestly wouldn't have been surprised. I thought first round could win either of them. Second round was Nog.
Yep.
Third round, I favored Shogun, but I'm like, if someone makes an argument for like Little Nog, I wouldn't be like. It was a lot close fight than I thought. Like, Little Nog was 0-2 against Shogun. It was this retirement fight, so I thought he'd come out a bit better. But Shogun, I don't know. I don't know how many more fights he has. I thought this was a good match for him, a winnable fight for him, and he just like seems. I know he's on like he's only lost like 1 fight in his last couple, but he just seems like slow. He seems a lot slower, and when he fights those faster guys, like he just gets pieced up. Even Nog had some success with his striking speed, so. I don't know. It was a super close fight. I didn't think it was going to be that close, but I had it for Shogun, but I could see the argument for Lil Nog as well.
Yeah, Shogun's actually 5-1-1 over his last 7. So don't look now, but Shogun is making a late run in his career, but it's not like he's going to get a title shot anytime soon. He says he has 1 or 2 more fights left after this fight. So I did an article for MMA ratings today, and you guys can go check that out if you want. I suggested 3 opponents. One was because if you look at the rankings, and I don't feel like he's not even in the rankings, so I don't really feel like he should be fighting these top 15 guys. I'd rather see Shogun fight legendary fighters. I'd rather see him fight veterans. So in my article, I suggested 3 fighters. And trust me, guys, if you actually look at the roster, it's not easy to find opponents for Shogun because of his advanced age, because you want to send him out on a winnable fight. You don't want to give him like an up-and-coming guy like Nurmagomedov, who's going to lose to you. Like, I'd rather them fight a veteran. So the 3 guys I suggested are Gokhan Saki, who is only 1-1 in the UFC, but stylistically, that is a fun fight, man. And Gokhan Saki, again, a veteran of the sport, legend of the sport, of combat sports, not really MMA, but I think that'd be a fun fight. Another guy suggested Jacare Souza. Jacare's not ranked right now. Jacare's a veteran of the sport. He's 40 years old. Jacare is a great fighter. He probably, in his mind, feels like he's still a contender. The fact is, he's not in the rankings anymore. So, and I don't know if I agree with that, by the way, but still, I think a fight with Shogun would be fun. But the one fight, this is the fight they have to make. Anderson Silva against Shogun Rua. It makes so much sense. Anderson's 45 now. He's only got a few fights left in his career. These guys were longtime training partners at Shooter Box. Anderson left the team. There was a big rivalry back in the day. They've probably sparred millions of times too. So, not millions of times, but you know what I'm saying. They've sparred before. I mean, they're longtime legends, and I think these 2 guys at this point in the career, this is the fight they should get. Because if you look at Anderson Silva, there's like nothing that makes sense for him. The only fight that in my mind would make sense other than this fight would be Chris Weidman maybe in a trilogy. But I feel like the Shogun fight would be a fun fight. So that's my thoughts on that, Cole. I know I asked you about this. You suggested the Paul. It wasn't really you that suggested it, but Paul Craig had suggested a rematch. I really did enjoy that first fight between Paul Craig and Shogun, but I'd rather see Shogun if he's going to have like 1 or 2 fights left. I don't want to see him fighting guys like Paul Craig and Tyson Pedro. I want to see him fight a guy like Anderson Silva. Cole, what do you think of that fight, man?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. Silva's in that weird spot. Like all these up-and-comers are calling him out, but at this point, one of those up-and-comers beating Anderson Silva doesn't really do a whole lot for them as they might think. Like, I think Silva needs to just fight those older guys, fight like a Weidman trilogy, a Shogun, like even a Luke Rockhold matchup down the line, like something just like that. Just where like whoever he fights isn't this up and comer like entering their prime. Like he needs to fight guys around his age or fighters out of their prime or coming out of retirement, stuff like that. Where the same thing for Shogun, like he's just being these fun fights. He only has 1 or 2 left.
Yeah, exactly. Next fight, Fabricio Werdum picking up a big upset here over Alexander Gustafsson. I told you, man. I told you he had a good chance to win. Gustafsson, I love the guy. He is an overrated fighter. I'm sorry, but he is. Like, you look at his resume lately, he hasn't won a fight in 3 years. He's on a 3-fight losing skid. He's getting finished every fight. I know he said that he wants to make another run at heavyweight, Cole. I don't think he has what it takes, man. I'll be honest. This was a fight he had to win to prove that he's even a top 15 guy in this division. He just lost to a guy who's 42 years old in Werdum. And I know Werdum has an amazing ground game, but the UFC wanted Gustafsson to win this fight, especially after Werdum looked really old and slow against Oleinik. This was a fight the UFC wanted Gus to win. He blew it, Cole. So a great win for Werdum. He's a free agent now. The Fedor rematch in Bellator, Cole, I think that's the fight, man. What do you think?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Fabricio in Bellator. There's just a lot of veteran fights for him.
Yep.
It's just the Legends League out in Bellator for the whole heavyweights.
I know it is. Got Damon Blackburn in the comments here. What's up? What's going on, Damon? Good morning, man. All right, next up, we'll just go through the rest of these fights somewhat quickly. Carla Esparza defeats Marina Rodriguez, split decision. I scored the fight for Rodriguez, Cole. I thought she won the first rounds based on damage. It was a close fight for sure, and Carla had a lot of positional control. But to me, that damage outweighs the positional control. What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, and I just don't get Marina Rodriguez. Like, you're taken down at will against Random Arts, Cynthia Calvillo. How have they not brought in some elite wrestler for the past 6 months and just said, shoot takedowns? That's all you're doing. Her boxing is good enough. Like, at this point, 80% of her training camp should just be stuff these takedowns.
Yeah.
Like, she's really got her feet. If she can just keep the fight standing, she wins most fights. But her problem is she can't stuff a takedown.
Yeah, definitely a disappointing performance. I mean, even though I thought she won the fight, I was disappointed by the takedown defense. It should have been there. For Carla, though, don't look now, Cole, 4 straight wins. Dana White mentioned her as a potential title contender. I think Weili Zhang would destroy her, probably finish her quicker than Joanna did. So I don't really want to see that fight, but there's no doubt Carla's a fighter that probably deserves a lot more respect than she's been given by especially the odds makers. She's an underdog like every fight, Cole, and keeps winning. So, good for her. Next up, Paul Craig defeats Gazimirov Antigulov via submission. This guy, Antigulov, what the hell was he thinking? Shoots on a takedown on Paul Craig, leaves his neck exposed. And the way Craig got that choke, really fast, so impressive there. Alex Oliveira defeats Peter Sabata. I didn't really think it was that great a fight, but Sabata obviously retired after the fight. Didn't look like he was there mentally either way. He just stood there and got outstruck for 3 rounds. Disappointing. I know that you picked Sabata. Cool, it happens. You never know. Like, I thought Sabata would have a more competitive fight. For me, it was going to be a close fight, but Oliveira made it look kind of easy. And then
I know he broke his arm in the first though.
Who did?
Sabata. He broke. That's what he said on Instagram.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Fair enough. I mean, obviously that's going to play a factor. So fair enough. But even then, I still feel like he wasn't doing much. And then the other fight in the main card, Kamzak Chimaev defeats Rhys Mckee via stoppage. He looked amazing, and he's looked incredible. I think people need to slow their roll, though. He's beaten 2 guys that are not that great. John Phillips is not really UFC caliber. 1-4 in the UFC. Rhys Mckee's 0-1. He's a prospect. He has obviously problems with his takedown.
And he's a 55er.
Yeah, it's crazy how people are just going nuts on Khabib. I mean, again, I think he's looked amazing. Can he be a champion? I think so. He's the guy I look at and I'm like, that's a guy that I think could be a world champ one day. There's been guys like this over the years. I've seen their first or second fights in the UFC, and I'm like, that's the guy who's going to be a champ one day. Chris Weidman was another guy. Chris Weidman came to UFC, and I was like, man, this guy's incredible. And I loved what he did in his first couple of fights. He beat Sakara and Bongfeld. They were low-level guys, but I saw the skill there. And eventually, obviously, he went on to beat Anderson and win a title. That's a guy that I kind of pegged as someone. But Khabib is a guy that I think could be there one day. But seriously, guys, talking about fighting Usman, to me, it's just disrespectful to the rest of the guys who are grinding out these high-level fights like Leon Edwards, 8 straight wins against elite opponents, whereas this guy's beating guys cold that I don't even know if they're really UFC caliber fighters. So he's looked great, don't get me wrong, and I do think he could be a champ one day, but I feel like people are just kind of they're pushing him too soon, Cole. What do you think?
Yeah, and I saw polls on Twitter. Someone was like, who wins? Who would you pick? Kamzat or Stephen Thompson? It was 80% for Chimaev. It's who? If you put anyone in the top 15 to fight John Phillips and Rhys Mckee, they'd probably beat them worse than Chimaev did.
Yeah. No offense to Rhys Mckee, but is he a UFC caliber guy? I don't know. He's going to fight on 1 week's notice too. He had no idea. Him and his coaches didn't even know who the guy was. They were like, Kamzat. They don't even know who he is. Gets destroyed. No surprise there. I mean, Kamzat, again, he's great, guys. I'm very impressed with him. I think he probably will be a champ one day. I do think that could happen. Not yet, though. And, now he's calling out Conor McGregor. I don't know if it's Ali writing his tweets. Maybe it is. I don't like this call. I'd rather see him go in there and do his business. And I love the fact he's going to fight again next month on August 15th. He wants to fight at UFC 242, which is great. It's 252. But, again, Cole, I just think people need to slow their roll. Just going through some of the prelims here. And we'll focus on a few of them, but Francisco Trinaldo defeats Jay Herbert via knockout. And obviously, a lot of controversy here, Cole, with the stoppage. Herb Dean kind of letting it go on for too long. Basically, honestly, me and Cole picked Herbert. Cole, I thought that was a shoe-in, man. After the second round, I was like, oh yeah. And the betting odds,
he was like minus 1,100 entering the third.
He was minus 2,000 entering the third, so he was even bigger, plus 1,000 on Trinaldo. So to me, it was actually probably 1-1 heading into the third. So the odds that's kind of surprising, but obviously people were kind of thinking Trinaldo was slowing down there in the end. He actually was the one who had more gas. Gets the finish on Herbert, lands a massive overhand right or overhand left that just completely stunned Herbert, who fell backwards into his guard. And I get that he had his arms up, but he wasn't defending. His eyes were rolled back in his head. Trinaldo didn't want to throw anything on him, but Herb Dean wouldn't stop the fight. Definitely a late stoppage. Herb Dean, obviously, now there's controversy, him coming out, and he had this video on Instagram where he defended the stoppage, saying it was the right stoppage, and basically went after Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy, screamed, stop the fight, and that's not his place, man. He's a commentator. He shouldn't be trying to influence the fight, in my opinion. I feel like since we haven't had crowds, it's definitely been more noticeable. Like, remember when Cormier commentated the fight with Augusto Sakai, where that guy grabbed the fence against Blagoy-Ivanov, and you heard Cormier stand up and scream at the referee? Like, these guys are trying to influence the action. They're not fans, man. They're commentators, and they're not officials. Like, Herb Dean's argument is, hey, are you the doctor? Like, I shouldn't be hearing a commentator say stop the fight because it's dangerous. And these are guys' livelihood. I mean, if he wasn't knocked out and it was an early stoppage, it could have been bad. Like, I understand that Dan Hardy's got a vested interest in Jai Herbert, like, he's obviously his friend. Dan Hardy's super biased too on commentary call. I don't really enjoy his commentary. I think it's too biased. In this case, I think he was completely out of line, man. Not only did he yell at the ref to stop the fight, and again, I thought the stoppage was late too, like a few punches too late. But afterwards, he came to a scream match with the referee. It's so unprofessional, man. Like, even Dana White is a guy who's unprofessional. I've never seen him get into a scream match with a referee. I've never seen Joe Rogan do it. So why is Dan Hardy getting all this praise from, especially with British fans? The British fans are like, they love Dan Hardy. And the guy's obviously a legend of British MMA. I get that. What he did, I don't think was professional, Cole. What do you think, man? I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it wasn't just Dan Hardy. Paul Felder was standing up too and screaming. So I think it was obviously super late round. He got dropped. He saw he was out cold. There was even Trinaldo didn't even want to throw any punches. Like, he just stood over him. He's like, he's out.
Yeah.
And Herb Dean took a while to even get there. Right when he dropped, it was like Trinaldo ran over to him, and Herb Dean was still like 3 seconds running after to get to him. And then he just stands over top of him. Like, Herbert was clearly out. He wasn't even defending himself. He should have just been stopped there. But it is bad for Dan Hardy to scream that. I get where, like, in the moment, you just get heated, but there's no way you should be having that conversation with Herb Dean in the public. If you want to have something to go after the event and say, Herb, I thought that stoppage was late, talk it out after the event, but to pull your headset off, and some of the was still heard on the broadcast of him screwing Herb Dean is, I don't know. It was too, it's not the right place for Dan Hardy at all.
And at that point, the fight was already over too. So, like, what's the point of that? It's, to me, again, unprofessional. So, Herb Dean's got to be reprimanded, though. I mean, this was a late stoppage, and I get that he's one of the best refs. That's the thing. People are like, Herb Dean sucks. He's a terrible ref. He's blown stoppages, like the Durandamy fight with Aspen Ladd. That was a bad stoppage, in my opinion, way too early. He's kind of inconsistent, like the Faber-Burrell fight back in the day. A lot of people thought that was an early stoppage too. So he's inconsistent. I get that. Also, the CB Dollaway fight against that Russian guy a couple years ago, where the guy just beat the hell out of CB and then he just let it go on for too long. So he is go ahead.
Even on this card, that Bozer Pessoa fight, that could have been stopped a lot sooner too.
I think that too. Yeah, that was just weird. We'll talk about that in a second. But honestly, Herb Dean is still one of the best refs in the sport. Like, if you go and watch regional level MMA call, those are bad refs. This guy, reffing is a tough job too, man. It's like split second, and it did look like a flash knockdown probably to the ref. I think that the fight should have been stopped a few punches too soon, but I've seen way worse stoppages. I think there was way too much controversy about this one, personally. Anyways, yeah, I just, Dan Hardy, listen, I respect the guy. He's a fighter, and, I get that he's very popular, but I don't know, man. To me, he leaves a lot to be desired as a commentator. That's just my opinion on that. Damon Blackburn had Trinaldo. He was getting messed up in the second round, but what a left hand, terrible stoppage, head bounced off, canvas, eyes were gone. He was out, no question. I don't know, Herb can pretend it's close. Yeah, I would have loved to see Herb own this one, man. Like Andy Foster, the California State Athletic Director, Cole, he booked this women's boxing match a few days ago, and it ended in 7 seconds. This girl got smoked. He actually came out and was like, I screwed up. I shouldn't have sanctioned this fight. I would have loved for Herb Dean to say, you know what? I made a mistake. I'll get better from this. And what was that referee? Jason Herzog with the Dominic Cruz fight. He released a statement call saying, I'll get better from this, basically. Or sorry, that was Keith Peterson. Herzog, what was the fight with her? Oh yeah, the Glover Teixeira fight with Anthony Smith. Sorry, that was the fight. He released a statement saying, I'm going to learn from this. I would have loved for Herb to say that too. And Herb has such a big platform that it would have been nice for him to say, you know what? I think maybe this the stoppage was too late, in my opinion, and I look back at it and I'll learn from this to get better. He kind of was too proud about it, but I think a lot of his criticism towards Hardy, saying, this guy, what he did was dangerous. It is dangerous, Cole, because he's not the doctor and he's not a cornerman. How if he wasn't knocked out and then he thought it was a cornerman that said stop the fight and then stop the fight? Like it can be reckless. I think Damon says, I think Herb went over to him. I believe that was a friend of Hardy, so I understand that. Bro, I don't think they're friends. I'll say that right now. Kenshiro. Oh, he must have had some bad parlay picks. Yeah, we'll get to the rest of the card. Sorry, guys. Jessie Ronson defeats Nicholas Dalby. That was a great win for Jessie. He needed it, man. 0-3 in his first stint in the UFC. Now he wins, Cole. Basically his third stint in the UFC because he actually was signed 2 years ago to fight, I think it was Diego Ferreira, right? Or, yeah. In Toronto. And he got his contract terminated after he basically couldn't make weight. Also on the card, obviously, we had Tom Aspinall looking really good against Jay Collier, who doesn't look like a UFC fighter at all. That guy looks like he's been on the couch for 3 years, like literally.
When he weighed in,
yeah.
I was like, who is this?
Yeah,
and they're like, Jay Collier. I'm like, no, it's not. That guy added like 100 pounds.
Yeah, I know.
And not 100 pounds a good weight.
I'm not one to talk, man, because I'm not like, fit or whatever either. But I mean, this guy definitely didn't look like he was training for a fight. He's a professional athlete. So Master Avlov looked really good here against Mike Grundy. Surprisingly kind of dominant in this fight, Cole. Great wrestling. He's like that Sukian guy, really fast, good wrestling, good striking. Not as good at striking, obviously. Tanner Boser defeats Pessoa via knockout. Kind of a weird stoppage there. Pessoa kind of like turtled up after getting hit in the eye. Danny Kianza defeats Betch Correa. Ramazan Ameev defeats Nicholas Stoltz, and Nathaniel Wood defeats John Castaneda. Any of these fights you want to talk about? I'm assuming you want to talk about Ronson.
Yeah, Ronson looked really good. I thought Dalby was going to win. I thought the size was going to be a big difference. It was obviously a huge win for him, 0-3 in the UFC. 3 split decisions. I think 1, maybe 2 could have gone his way. But this is a big win, back down to 55, though, which is obviously his natural weight class. I think his call-outs made a lot of sense. A guy like Jalen Turner, Luis Pena, those lower guys in the lightweight division. But other than that, like Tanner Boser looked good. Nathaniel Wood looked a good win for him. Just get back in the win column. It was, but the first 3 fights all go to decision. I'm like, this is going to be a long card. I'm like 15 fights in the first 3 went to this. So I good thing we got a couple finishes in there.
Yeah, and the UFC, they gave out 6 bonuses. They would have given out 7. Ronaldo missed weight. That's why he didn't get a bonus. People were probably wondering that. You miss weight. If you miss weight, you're not eligible. So they gave out 6 bonuses. I love to see it, man. They should do it way more often. What bothers me, Cole? I'll be honest. When I look back at old events from 2007, 2008, where the bonuses were like $60,000, like why is it 50 now? Like it should be 100,000 probably, or at least give more bonuses. That's really stupid in my opinion. I know once WME, IMG, or Endeavor they took over, they made that like standardized 50,000. But before that, with the Fertitas, they used to slip guys cash all the time, man. I bet the fighters love the Fertitta brothers, man. Kenshiro here says Herb did a great job. Gave Herbert a chance at being a warrior and fight for his life, Mario Yamasaki. Yeah, it was, again, I think it was late, but, he says Dan Hardy should be ashamed of himself. His friend is a pro fighter, not a baby, and Hardy, you're not official. Sit down and shut up. Yeah. Again, I know there's a vested interest there, but he's not a ref, so. And Damon says, I started 7-0. Dolby messed me up. Grand in parlays. Yeah. Dolby was the parlay killer. I thought there'd be other guys getting, obviously Gustafsson too. He killed a lot of people's parlays too, but yeah. And then, that's it. Okay, so only Damon says this. They should hand out more bonuses. Too many guys making 10 and 10 is such a joke. Bro, you're telling me, man. I mean, seriously, especially for a guy like Tanner Boser. I know he just got a new contract, but you don't think he can use that 50K, Cole? And he deserved it, man. He should have won in his last fight, too. So he should have got more. All right, that's going to be it for this part of the podcast. We'll go to Bellator 242 quickly. Did you watch it, Cole?
I just watched the final, the main card, the 4 fights.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't watch the Bellator prelims, man. I got other stuff to do. All right, so quickly go over it. Aaron Pico looked really good against Solo Hatley Jr. Nice win for him, but again, I still don't trust him completely, man. I'll be honest with that chin and just his defense in general. He's only 6-3, Cole. You know, it's not like this guy's 20-0. He's 6-3. He kind of gets a lot of hype, but you know, this was a good win for him. I still think he needs to slowly roll. I should have mentioned Rafian Stotts also had a nice performance on the prelims. Didn't see the fight, but from what I heard, very dominant, and he was a big favorite there as well. This fight was interesting, Cole. J.J. Wilson against Tywin Claxton. I actually scored the fight for J.J. Wilson. I know that I'm probably in the minority there, but to me, I think he won. I think it was the first and third round based on his effective grappling. Tywin Claxton basically just pushed him against the fence. JJ actually had submission attempts. He was going for the finish. He landed, I think, better shots. So I don't know how closely you watched the fight, Cole, but what do you think about the scorecard?
Yeah, I wasn't watching this one too closely, but I think just on first glance, it was like a super close fight. It was one of those ones where if Wilson won, I wasn't surprised. If Claxton won, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Tywin Claxton all of a sudden now two.
1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2 in his last 3. Like he was one of those top prospects for Bellator. They put him in the Grand Prix, and then he lost to Emelianenko Sanchez, lost JJ Wilson. JJ Wilson missed weight here too, so I don't know how much that size and strength added to it, but he looked good for considering he was a big underdog here too.
Yeah, and I said in the podcast on Friday, I know that one didn't get as many viewers, but hopefully you guys listened because I actually was pretty bang on with my breakdown of this card, especially this fight between Jason Jackson and Jordan Meehan. I said Jason Jackson was the best bet of the weekend, and he ended up being – he was a plus 100 underdog at close, Cole. Crazy, man. I don't know why people were betting on Jordan here after such a long layoff. Jason Jackson's a good fighter, man. He's the guy that could be in the UFC, in my opinion. So I'm very impressed with him. And, you know, Sergio Pettis also looked good. That fight, 327 across the board, I think it was a little bit more competitive than the scorecards will indicate because Ben Diaz did have some nice spots, especially on the mat, Cole. But overall, I thought Pettis won. So any thoughts on those last 2 fights?
Yeah, Pettis looked good. Jason Jackson, I don't get how he opened as the underdog. That was a clear – I thought he should have been a bigger favorite than what like Tywin Claxton was. I thought he was that. If I had to pick one, if you had to give me one shot, I'd just say who's your guarantee that will win on Bellator. I would have said Jason Jackson. Yeah. I didn't think Mean had much for him. Pettis looked good. I think he's obviously going to get that title shot against Werdum, Mix, Archuleta. So I think if he wins a belt, it's probably good for Bellator. He's a bigger name than what Patrick Mix and Juan Archuleta are.
Yeah, that fight makes a lot of sense. I think they've already kind of like announced it. Yeah, I remember I messaged you like before the odds came out. And I'm like, please, I hope Jason Jackson's an underdog. And he opened as a dog, went to a favorite status, went back to a dog. That to me was one of the best bets of the weekend. All right, I'll take a few more comments here, and then we'll go to UFC Fight Night. Shahbazyan versus Brunson. Kenshiro Ryodoju has that Kamayev won 10K and 10K. I think I don't know if he's making 10 and 10. They don't release the salaries, so we have no idea. They didn't release the salaries, right? Yeah, we have no idea, guys. It could be 20 and 20 maybe. It's probably not that much. You know, it's probably 12 and 12, let's be honest. But he didn't make 100K in bonuses. That's correct. So good for him. And he's going to fight again, guys. UFC 252. And I just saw on Twitter, Ralph Mariano, they said that UFC 255, that's the card, Cole. The Khabib card. So there's 254 that doesn't have a main event yet.
It's like 2 weeks before. It's like October 8th, so that's something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to fight that. I mean, maybe Usman. Could be Usman Burns. That does kind of make sense. Like, if Usman wants to fight again. He didn't take much damage in the last fight. And Daniel Edwards, Gustafsson cost me. Geesh, yeah. Yeah, like I said, guys, you know, I looked at those odds. I'm like, why is he minus 350? It didn't make sense to me. You know, Fabricio is old, but he's still a beast, you know, as far as this ground game goes. All right, that's it for the recaps. Cole, let's go to the preview of this weekend's card. UFC Fight Night, Shahbazyan. Actually, it says Brunson versus Shahbazyan, yeah, because Brunson's ranked number 8 and Shahbazyan is ranked number 9. But we all know this card's being built around Edmen Shahbazyan. All right, so overall, this is not the best card they did, but you know, a lot of the fights being booked on short notice. But there are some intriguing matchups here. We have 11 fights to talk about, Cole. We'll just start with the bottom and work way up as always. First fight on the card, Chris Gutierrez takes on Cody Durden in a bantamweight bout. And right now we have Chris Gutierrez minus 320, Cody Durden plus 260. Give me your thoughts on this one, Cole.
I'm going Chris Gutierrez, but this fight you can't really bet on. He's way too high of a favorite. Cody Durden's a natural. He's a guy that's fought a flyweight. He's fought a couple times at bantamweight recently. I think when he got signed, I think that Mckee said he's going to be a flyweight. So I think the hope was probably he was going to drop down. But Chris Gutierrez is a bigger guy. He's He fought at 145 against Vince Morales last time out. Really good performance, a leg kick, TKO. I just think he's a better striker. He's a pretty good grappler. I just think Durden, I don't know what his card is going to be like. I know he just fought recently. He fought July 18th. He's obviously making a quick turnaround. You don't know what kind of damage is still there from the fight. I think Gutierrez should win this fight. I think he'll probably win by decision. I don't think he'll be able to get a stoppage, but at this odds, I don't think you can really bet this fight at all.
Yeah, I really like Chris Gutierrez here, obviously. I mean, the guy has looked really good in the UFC, no doubt about it. His low kicks are some of the best low kicks in the sport. He is incredible with his kicks. In his last fight, he finished Vince Morales with kicks. That was impressive, man. That was at 145 too, so moving back down to 135 here, which is his weight class. Overall, 3-1 in the UFC. He's looked great, in my opinion. He beat DeFreitas, close fight, but I think he was a dog in that fight. And then the Ryan McDonald fight looked good in, and then obviously lost to Barcelos, but there's no shame in that. Barcelos is a really good fighter. Overall, I mean, this is a guy with quite a bit of experience, Cole. He obviously trains at a good camp there, Factory X. So this is a quality fighter here in Chris Gutierrez, and he's only 29, so he's a guy that is kind of in his prime right now. Cody Durden, obviously, I don't think a lot of us know much about him. He's also 29, 11-2 record. He's an American top team Atlanta guy, so I guess he's training with the Lehman brothers, right, Cole? That would be his training partners, and Jucal, Ron Jucal. So those are his guys there. I mean, he doesn't have much high-level experience, which does bother me here. His best win, I don't even know who it would be. I guess the guy he beat 2 fights ago was 10-3, but I don't even know who that is. Varian Webb. I have no idea who that is, I'll be honest. Really, his only notable opponent is Jared Scoggins, who's Jetson Scoggins' brother, and he lost to him. He is on a nice win streak here. He's on a 9-fight win streak, Cole, so he's looked obviously good lately. And he's finishing most of his opponents, which is nice. But I don't think he's going to beat Chris Gutierrez. Chris Gutierrez is a beast, man. I'm telling you, this guy, is he going to be a champ? Probably not. I don't know how well-rounded his grappling is, but as far as his striking goes, if he keeps his fight in the feet, I don't see how Durden can be competitive because of those kicks, man. So give me Chris Gutierrez, Cole. Durden certainly is a guy that could surprise because we don't know much about him. And like you said, he just fought 2 weeks ago, so he could be fresh. He could be excited for this opportunity, and maybe he's going to have a great performance. We've seen some like newcomers win lately, but I can't see it happening here, man. Gutierrez is experienced and he's solid. So Chris Gutierrez, I think he probably wins the decision here, Cole. Could stop the fight, but I'm feeling a decision more likely. All right, next up, featherweight bout between Jamal Emmers and Timur Valiev. Right now we have Valiev minus 170, Emmers plus 150. Who's your pick, Cole?
I like Timur Valiev here. He was a guy that was really impressive in World Series of Fighting on a pretty big winning streak. He has a win over Chris Gutierrez in World Series of Fighting. Jamal Emmers is a guy that should have been in the UFC a long time ago. He got his notice, UFC 248, lost to Giga Chiudese by split. It was a pretty close fight. Like, just going down his record, like he has wins over Corey Sandhagen and Alexander Hernandez, which are obviously good wins. That was on the regional scenes, but I just think Valiev does what Emmers does, just better. I think he's better grappler. I think he's probably a better striker. I think Valiev will be able to outwork Emmers and get a decision win here, but again, it's a UFC debut. It's hard to bet on a guy that is being talked on debut. I like that he does have experience at a high level, World Series of Fighting, so maybe those nerves won't be there. So I expect Valiev to get a decision win here, but I think Emmers is probably a live dog.
And I should have mentioned the last fight, Luke Sanders withdrew from that fight, and Cody Durden took the fight on like really short notice. So we got to mention that quickly. As far as this fight goes, I like Valiev too. The guy's solid, man. I remember him obviously from World Series of Fighting. He actually fought Chris Gutierrez twice, Cole. So that's kind of an interesting thing to mention there. This is a guy who has some pretty good experience. You know, he's got some good wins. You know, Ed West, Max Koga. I mean, these are okay wins. Bekbalat Magomedov. Like, these are decent wins. This is a guy with a lot of experience. Overall, I've been impressed with him, man. This is his UFC debut, but I think this is a good move for him. Jamal Emmers is a guy that he has a lot of experience too, and he has some good wins. Corey Sandhagen, man, he beat him in 2017. That's a huge win. But Cole, I'll be honest, like, I was really disappointed with this fight against Giga Chikadze in his last fight. He was a favorite in that fight, and I don't know, man. I wasn't impressed in that performance, and I know that Jig is obviously a lot better than a lot of us thought, but I don't know. That bothered me. And then the fight with Julian Rosa on Contender Series where it knocked out, like, that bothers me too. So I know this is a guy that's had some nice wins. Jay Cuccinello, that's a decent win too. Chris Avila. I mean, these are guys that fought in the UFC, and obviously, like I mentioned, Sandhagen. So he could surprise here, Cole, but I doubt it, man. I think Valiev is going to be a little bit too much for him on the feet and win a decision most likely. Damon says, beware of the underdog. So many won when they had those cards in the small cage. Dude, I just told Cole that before we got on. I was like, and guy just mentioned Julian Erosa. That's the fight that like worries me. I'm like, man, there's no way in hell I thought he'd beat Sean Woodson and went in there and did it. So definitely, you got to be careful. Obviously, you got to pick your spots. And there's going to be a lot of guys that do win that you thought won, but there'll probably be a few upsets that none of us saw coming. If I had to guess, Cole, I'm only picking a couple of dogs in this card, guys. I think Cole's only picking like one or two himself. So it's probably going to be a favorite card, but I'm sure there'll be a few fights that we didn't see the outcome coming. All right. Next up, we have a middleweight bout. Eric Spicely against Marcus Perez. And right now we have the odds favoring Marcus Perez minus 200, Eric Spicely plus 170. Cole, who's your pick?
I'm going Marcus Perez. I'm just not very high on Eric Spicely. He obviously had that good return in the UFC. He lost a drawn win, but put on a good performance. So that drawn win, like I think that's a fight. Not very high in drawn win either. Marcus Perez, I know he's lost Wellington turn. Before that, he beat Anthony Hernandez by submission. These guys submits a lot of people. Eric Spicely's obviously pretty on the ground. He does have a submission over Thiago Santos, but he's been submitted before. I just think Marcus Perez is a bit more well-rounded than Spicely. We're on the ground. I think Perez has the advantage. On the feet, I think it's probably pretty even. I just don't like how Spicely gets hit a lot. We saw Drawn win hit Spicely a lot. I just don't think Perez. I think Perez probably hits harder than Win. I think he's the more volume striker than Win. I just don't like Spicely's striking defense. I think Perez can really piece him up here. Probably in decision. I think maybe you might get a late finish. Like maybe you drop some subs or maybe drops and gets TKO. But my pick's Marcus Perez.
Yeah, I don't love the odds, but I do feel like Perez should be favored here. I think he's just a bit more solid, man. The biggest problem I have with Spicely is obviously, hey, he's a guy that has good experience too, and he's got some nice wins, man. Like the Thiago Santos win, who saw that coming? That was a nice win, and he's had some good performances in the UFC, but he's had a lot of losses too, especially by stoppage, man. This guy's durability is a massive question mark, in my opinion. I don't think he can take punches, especially to the body. He can't take kicks to the body. And on the ground, he can be submitted. Obviously, he does have submission ability of his own. He can finish guys with his own submissions, but to me, he's just a guy that has way too many holes in his game. Perez has been kind of inconsistent in the UFC. He's just he's 2-3 now, so he's been really inconsistent. But again, a guy that has some good experience. He has some nice wins. Ian Heinisch, Anthony Hernandez, Paul Thiago, those are okay wins. Like, Ian Heinisch win looks really nice. Finished him a couple years ago. But it's a guy that's still – I don't know. Like I have a hard time trusting him a little bit, Cole, because of his record, 2-3. Is that a guy you really want to lay this kind of juice on? Got to think about it. I think Perez probably finishes this fight just because of Spicely's durability issues. But Eric Spicely's a guy that's had some nice performances from time to time. Daniel Edwards, fight should be finished either way. He likes Perez, but he thinks it's going to be a stoppage. I agree. That fight's not going the distance, Cole. I'd be surprised. Fight not going the distance is only minus 215. I think that's a good bet because I don't think that fight goes 3 rounds. He also likes Jamal Emmers as the underdog in that fight. We'll see. Should be interesting. All right. Next up, we have a bantamweight bout between Ray Borg and Nathan Maness, who's making his UFC debut here. This fight was booked on pretty short notice. Ray Borg, minus 225. Maness, plus 185. Who's your pick?
I'm going with the underdog, Nathan Maness. He's TKO champ here, but I just think the big difference is Ray Borg at flyweight is so dominant. At bantamweight, his wrestling isn't the same. And Nathan Maness is a guy that's been fighting at featherweight. He's had a couple lightweight fights. He has an 11-inch reach advantage. So I think it's going to be massive. I think if Maness can just keep Borg at range, he'll be able to peck him apart. And the problem with Borg, as we saw in the Rick Simone fight, he just doesn't have that strength at bantamweight to get guys down. I think Maness is going to be so much bigger where he'll just basically be able to, like big brother Ray Borg, and if he shoots, he'll just be able to kind of stuff him pretty easy just with his size and strength. I think Maness keeps his fight on the feet. I think he's a lot better striker than Ray Borg, and I think just the size and reach I think is going to be a big factor. I think he'll probably edge a decision just by stuffing the takedowns and picking apart Borg on the feet.
Yeah, this is definitely a spot where the dog can win, I think, as well. Maness is an impressive prospect, 11-1, only 29 years old. So, again, a guy who's in his prime. Has some good experience, Cole, for sure. Fighting guys like Jesse Arnett, I mean, that's a pretty solid win. Did lose to Taylor Lapalus by stoppage, so that kind of bothers me a little bit. And that was only 2 fights ago. But, it's a guy with some decent amount of experience for a young fighter. Ray Borg, though, I mean, this is a guy he's still young, by the way. He's only 26, Cole. It's crazy, right? He's been in the UFC for a while now. He's a guy that's so talented. We all know how talented Ray Borg is. He has great grappling. I mean, it's really good. But we've seen him lose so many times now in the UFC. Like, he's kind of inconsistent, especially at 135. I'm with you, Cole. I think that there's a lot of issues here as far as his size and stuff goes because he's not like that dominant guy he is at 125. So I do feel like this is an underdog spot for sure. I'm going to still pick Ray Borg, though. I think he probably grinds out a decision here. That's kind of how I'm feeling the fight goes. But Manus definitely is a live dog. So this is definitely a fight that's dog or pass. I wouldn't bet on Ray Borg in this fight. Daniel Edwards, if he couldn't wrestle, I'd pick Borg, but he's a natural 135er. Yeah. And Kenshiro says, I will take Ray Borg here. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Manus is a live dog, guys. I wouldn't bet on Ray Borg in the spot, but I'm still going to pick him because I do think he's, with that experience, I think he'll probably get it done. All right, next up, light heavyweight bout that's also booked on short notice between Ed Herman and Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert is filling in for an injured fighter, or not injured. Dan Jung couldn't get a visa in time. Same with Jung Young Park. Both those guys are off the card and obviously had replacements. So here, Ed Herman takes on Gerald Meerschaert. This is going to be a fun fight, Paul. I think this could be one of the fights of the night. This is going to be a good one. Two veterans of the sport. Gerald Meerschaert minus 190. Ed Herman plus 165. Give me your pick.
I'm going Gerald Meerschaert. I just think he's kind of Ed Herman, just a bit better. He's more in his prime and always coming off a loss to Ian Heinisch, which it made a fairly quick turn and lost, got knocked out. It wasn't a bad knock, like it's kind of that ref stopped him there, but before that had the submission over draw and win, a split against Eric Anders where a lot of people thought he won that fight, and then the win over Trevin Giles. I just think Ed Herman, I know he's on 2-fight win streak, but he beat Pat Cummins and Kadis Ibrahimov, who I don't think are UFC caliber. Before that, lost to Jean Palante, CB Holloway. Like, he doesn't have the good, he's not beating those guys he should be beating. I think Meerschaert's just he's going to be the faster fighter on the feet. I think on the ground, he's probably a bit better. And I don't think the size is going to be a big difference. I know Meerschaert's moving up to 205. Ed Herman's a natural light middleweight that just doesn't care to cut weight anymore. I just think Meerschaert's the better fighter all around. I don't know if it'll be a finish. Ed Herman showed he's got a pretty good durability right now. So I'll take Meerschaert by decision. Maybe gets a late sub or something.
Yeah, it's a good fight, but you know what, Cole? I'm actually going to take the dog here in Ed Herman. I don't love it, but I'm going to take him here. The thing with Meerschaert is, and I pick him like every fight, and he's a really good fighter, but he just got finished a month ago. That bothers me, or 2 months ago, I guess now. That still bothers me, though. He did take damage in that fight. This is a guy who overall is durable, but he's been knocked out a couple times on the UFC, and I feel like all those wars, I mean, he's had 44 fights. He has more fights than Ed Herman, which is crazy. Ed Herman's had a lot of wars too, but he's actually holding up pretty well. And in my opinion, Ed Herman's looked great in his last two fights. The fight with Ibrahimov, that was a great fight. So much fun to watch. If you like clinch work, go back and watch that fight. That's a fun fight to watch, man. And then Patrick Cummins fight looked good. The John Vellante fight, that was a close fight. That could have gone either way. Obviously, this guy, again, he's been getting knocked out a little bit more frequently as well the last few years, but I've actually been impressed by his form lately. So, I'm expecting a war here, man. I think it's going to be a crazy fight. I kind of feel like Herman's going to pull it off, though, guys. I think he can knock out Gerald Meerschaert. So that's going to be my pick. That's one of my few underdogs I'm taking this card. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to slightly lean towards Ed Herman to get the win. All right, next up, we have the last prelim. Frankie Saenz against Jonathan Martinez. Right now, we have Jonathan Martinez minus 220. Frankie Saenz plus 180. Cool. Who's your pick?
I like Jonathan Martinez here. I don't really love the odds. I don't think you can really bet him at this price. I think Saenz is a live dog here. I think it's betting. You're probably going to do dog or pass here, but I just think Martinez more well-rounded. Frankie Saenz, he's coming off that loss to Marlon Vera. He's a guy that I'm questioning his durability. He's been knocked out by Eddie Wine. Like, he's been finished a bit. Martinez is a guy that doesn't have a huge knock power. He does have that knee win over Pinwin Lee. His last fight against Andre Ewell, I think a lot of people thought he should have won that fight. I don't know how Ewell won. But the loss to Andre Sigurtov does scare. I know that was a while ago, but I think Martinez is a more well-rounded fighter. I think if he can keep the fight standing, he'll be able to pick apart Saenz. I think that's a big question. If Saenz can get Martinez down, I think he's probably has a good shot to win this fight. I just question his durability at this point. I just think Martinez can keep the fight standing and just pick up piece of Saenz on the feet and just probably earn a decision to win.
No, I like Jonathan Martinez here too. I think he definitely wins this fight. Frankie Saenz is 39 years old, guys. He is the oldest fighter in this division. He has to be. I can't think of anyone older. I guess Faber. I guess he's the only guy who's older. But yeah, I can't see a guy who's 26 and Martinez who's like in really good form right now losing to Frankie Saenz. Like, I just don't see it happening. Frankie hasn't fought in a year and a half too, so that's another reason I think not to like him here. But again, I always fade older fighters. 39 is really old age for this division. Jonathan Martinez will be way faster. On the feet, there's no question he's a better striker. Can he stop the takedowns? I think so. I mean, maybe Saenz can get a couple, and we'll see what happens. He's had a few upsets in the past where he took guys down that we didn't expect, but I don't think that happens here. I think Martinez keeps it upright, outstrikes Sainz. I think he has a chance to finish Frankie Sainz, but overall probably gets a decision here. But I do like Jonathan Martinez quite a bit. Kenshiro, Sainz 40 years old. We almost got a lot of 4-year-olds, including Ed Herman. Yeah, there's a lot of older guys in this card, but you know what? Some of these guys are still effective at their older age. All right, main card, Cole. Let's get through it. Kevin Holland against Trevin Giles, middleweight bout, opening up the card. Kevin Holland took the fight on very short notice here. Holland minus 200, Giles plus 170. Who's your pick?
I'm going Kevin Holland. I think Holland finishes this fight rather quickly, like first, second round. His last fight, I picked against him in Hernandez. I thought Hernandez on the ground would have a lot of success, and Holland just ran through him. Holland wanted to go to welterweight. After that, he had that quick turnaround against Daniel Rodriguez, pulled up because of the shoulder. Back up to middleweight to fight Trevin Giles. I'm not very high on Trevin Giles. I know he beat James Krause. His last fight, that was, what, I think 36 hours, 24 hours, something like that notice. And James Krause nearly won that fight. Like, that judge actually scored the first round for James Krause, which he clearly won. James Krause won that fight. He would have been on a 3-fight lose streak and probably would have been cut. Something I don't like about Trevin Giles is he works as a cop, and I know he talked to James, and he said, like, his schedule was so busy, he didn't have a lot of time to train just because of everything going on, that most of his focus was on being a police officer. I think Holland on the ground probably equals Trevin Giles. I know Giles has a lot of submission wins, but we saw in the James Krause fight, he loses positions a lot. He gets his back taken a lot. I think if Holland does that, he'll be able to submit him. On the feet, I think he's the more powerful striker. He's the faster striker. I think Holland, whether it be sub or a knockout, I think he finishes Trevin Giles here.
Yeah, I think you're kind of underselling Trevin Giles, man. I think he's got some good talent in him. He's got some nice wins. Brendan Allen, he finished him. Ryan Spann, he beat him. Like, those are some solid wins. The Krause fight, I thought he won that fight. It was close, but, you know, obviously the losses to Cummings and Mearshart, that did expose him a little bit on the ground. And, you know, that's why I'm going to lean towards Holland too. Even though Holland took the fight on short notice, he's taken fights on short notice in the past, and he's proven he can hang in there and beat guys. So I do like him here. I just think that it could be a potential dog spot, Cole. I wouldn't go too crazy in Holland, man. But that's going to be my pick. I'll take Kevin Holland. I think he probably does get the finish here. But I'm telling you guys, Trevin Giles, he had a full camp for this fight. Holland didn't. So this could be another spot where there's an upset, in my opinion. All right, next up, we got a lightweight bout between Lando Venata and Bobby Green. Right now, we have odds favoring Venata minus 145, Bobby Green plus 125. Who's your pick?
Yeah, the rematch too. The first fight was a draw, which was only because Venata had that point taken. If not, he would have won that fight. But I'm still going with the underdog on Bobby Green. I just not high on Lando Venata at all. He's a guy that, before the lost Drucker close, draw Matt Frivola, beat Marcus Mariano, who is the only reason he was in the UFC is because he's Anderson Silva's friend. Then lost to Casey. The winner of Medeiros looks good, but Bobby Green, the Clay Guida fight was good. Lost to Ronaldo close, and then beat Eric Coach. He's a guy that, both these guys are so inconsistent. I think it's hard to bet this fight. Like, I wouldn't bet this fight at all, just because you don't really know which version. Like, you get the Lando Venata version that fought Yancy Medeiros, or you get the version that fought a guy like Drakkar Klose, David Tamer, lost to him. But same thing with Bobby Green. He's so inconsistent. I just think this is going to be a striking fight. I think Bobby Green just has some good striking. I think he can clinch up Lando Venata as well and have some success. I'll pick Bobby Green by decision, but even though I'm picking the underdog, I wouldn't bet this fight at all.
Yeah, it's like the battle between guys that are 500. I'm looking at the records right now. Bobby Green, 5-5-1 in the UFC. Actually, sorry, 6-5-1. Lando Venata, 3-4-2. So, like, one of the weirdest records in the UFC right now. It's so bizarre. These guys are really tough to trust, man. They're so consistent. Like, at times, both guys have had some really good performances. I remember when Venata had made his debut against Ferguson. Man, he gave Tony Ferguson run for his money. Then he had that win against John McDessie. Crazy wheel kick. I was there for that one. He's had some great fights. Bobby Green, I thought he looked really good against Clay Guida too. So he's had some good fights too. Obviously, these guys have fought before. It was 3 years ago now. The rematch, I think, will be competitive as well. Definitely going to be a close fight. Again, it's not a fight I would bet on, but I'm going to pick Bobby Green because I was impressed by how he looked against Guida, man. I think overall, he probably is a little bit more well-rounded, but Green's one of these guys, man. It's like Darren Till. Like, there's times, Cole, where it's so frustrating to watch him fight because he doesn't throw enough. So that could be a problem in this fight. But, Venata, obviously, I think he's got great striking. I just think Green's going to mix it up a little bit more. That's my pick. And I remember I messaged you, Cole, and I was like, how many dogs you picked? And you said, I think 1 or 2. And I said, I think it's going to be Bobby Green. And you said, okay, I'm not going to tell you. And then now it's Bobby Green. So I figure it was, Cole. Yeah, I think Green wins this fight, but we'll see what happens. All right, 3 more fights left, guys. Vicente Luque against Randy Brown, welterweight bout, great fight. Another fight I think could win fight of the night. Luque minus 175, Brown plus 155. Who's your pick?
I'm on Vicente Luque. I think Randy Brown here, though, is a live underdog. I would not be surprised if Randy Brown won. Randy Brown has a lot of power, and we've seen Luque. He got hurt to Nico Price, but he ended up coming back. He's made a fairly quick turnaround after that fight, just fighting in early May, which, 3 months? I guess it's a somewhat of a normal turnaround, but I just like Luque. I think he's the better striker. I think he is Randy Brown, just better version. I think on the ground, Luque is probably the better grappler. I know Randy Brown has some submission wins, but I think this is going to be a stand-up fight where Luque is the more powerful striker, the more volume striker. I just think he'll be able to hurt Randy Brown. I don't expect this fight to go the distance. I think whoever wins probably scores a TKO win. I think Luque wins this fight, though, probably by second, third round TKO.
Yeah, I love Luque, man. He's so good. I know you interviewed him, Cole. That's awesome. 11-3 in the UFC, and he's looked great, man. He's won 7 of the last 8 fights. I mean, he's looked impressive as hell. And this is a guy that has finishing ability on the ground and on the mat, or on the feet. So he's incredible, man. He's just great everywhere. Nothing but impressed by Vicente Luque his entire career. He's a guy that's always been a good bet. He's a winner. So I think he wins this fight too. And Brown has looked good in the UFC overall. He is 6-3. He's had some really nice performances, but to me, he's a little inconsistent. I know he had that nice win against Warley Alves, and the win over Brian Barberino was nice too. But he's had these fights like the one against Nico Price where he gets knocked out on the ground, which was really surprising. Or the Michael Graves fight. Actually, Michael Graves beat both these guys, which is crazy. If that guy wasn't a nut, he would probably be in the UFC and doing really well. But he's got some personal issues that were well documented a few years ago. Yeah, I like Randy Brown too, man. But I just feel like Luque Cole, especially if he keeps the standings, is going to win this fight. That's my pick. I think Luque by decision or maybe by knockout as well. Kenshiro says Brown is way stronger on the ground. Brown is good, but don't undersell Vicente Luque in the ground. He has multiple chokes by Darce and Anaconda in the UFC. He's really good in the ground. All right, co-main event, Cole. Women's flyweight belt. Joanne Calderwood against Jennifer Maia. Right now we have Joanne Calderwood minus 190, Maia plus 165. Who's your pick?
I think the bigger question in this fight is, does Jennifer Maia make weight? She's missed weight the past 2 fights. I think Calderwood wins this fight. I just think she's the better striker. I can't see this fight going down on the ground. I think Calderwood will just be able to piece up Jennifer Maia, similar to what Katlyn Chookagian did to her. I just think Calderwood's going to edge out a decision, secure a title shot over Chookagian. I was surprised when she did take this fight, but then I'm not surprised after looking more into it. I'm like, who knows when Shevchenko's going to fight? She hasn't fought since September last year. Good to get another win and get more money, get some more experience. I think this is a favorable match for you. I think she's the better striker than Jennifer Maia, lands more strikes, more volume strike. I just think she'll be able to edge out Jennifer Maia. I think this fight's going to look really similar to what Maia Chookagian was.
Yeah, this is going to be, I don't think the greatest fight, honestly. But I feel like Calderwood is probably just going to outpoint Jennifer Maia. We should mention Calderwood is taking the fight somewhat short notice, I think 2 or 3 weeks, filling in for Vivian Araujo, who I believe has COVID-19. So that's something to keep in mind here. Jennifer Maia does have some nice wins too. I mean, she has got a lot of experience. She's a former Invicta champion. She has some good wins. Roxanne twice, Alexis Davis, Jessica Andrade. So she has some good wins. But Joanne Calderwood, I think, has been a lot more proven in the UFC, and overall, 1 through the last 4 fights and look pretty good. This is going to be, like I said, I don't think the greatest fight in the world. I think it could be kind of like a low output kind of fights. But it's an important fight at 125, and I think Calderwood gets it and finally gets her title shot. All right, main event, Cole. Probably the most intriguing fight on the card. Edmen Shahbazyan taking on Derek Brunson in a middleweight bout. Edmen Shahbazyan minus 330, Derek Brunson plus 270. Who's your pick?
Yeah, this is a really surprise. I'm surprised Edmen Shahbazyan is this high of a favorite because Derek Brunson has really good wrestling. And if you look at his record, he only loses to those elite guys. Israel Adesanya, Jacare Souza, Anderson Silva at that time, I think, which was pretty good. Robert Whittaker, Yoel Romero were his only losses in the UFC, which those are the top guys. Those are champions or future title challengers, other than Souza, who probably should have got a title shot though. So Shahbazyan beats Brunson. That's a huge win for him. That shows he belongs. I do think Edmen Shahbazyan wins this fight. I think he's going to knock out Derek Brunson in the first, second round. That Brad Tavares performance really impressed me. I picked Shahbazyan in that fight, but no one finishes Brad Tavares like that. Like Adesanya went 5 rounds. Brad Tavares, he's a tough guy to finish, and Shahbazyan got him out quickly. I think this is going to be similar to Adesanya Brunson, where Adesanya lands that head kick, drops Brunson, and Shahbazyan finishes him by ground pound. I think Shahbazyan finishes the fight in the first, second round. I think after that, he's skyrocketed top 5 guy, and he's fighting for the belt pretty soon.
Well, Brad Tavares was knocked out even quicker by Rob Whittaker, man. I'm sure that was a crazy finish too.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting fight, Cole. I mean, Edmen obviously is so impressive, and he's young, man, 22, Cole, so young, managed by Ronda Rousey. UFC loves him. It's his first main event. He's looked great in the UFC. The Darren Stewart fight, his first fight was close. He won that fight by split. Since then, they're just destroying everyone. Charles Burr, Jack Marshman, Brad Tavares. I think being Brad Tavares, like you said, it's a good win. He's kind of like the gatekeeper of the top 15. So to me, that was a nice win for him for sure, and he looked impressive as hell in that fight. But Derek Brunson, I think, is getting a little bit undersold here by people, Cole. I mean, this is a guy has a lot of experience, and he has great wins in his career. His last fight against Ian Heinisch, he won that fight. That's a solid win. That's a better win than Shahbazyan has. And that was his last fight. He's got wins over Machida. I knocked him out. Uriah Hall, Lawrence Larkin. I mean, these are some good wins. It's a guy that Derek Brunson, if you look at his record in his career, he's lost 2 times by decision. The Kendall Grove fight was a horrible decision. He should have won that fight. The UFC and Strikeforce, they still kept him after that fight. That was a terrible decision back in the day. The fight with Anderson Silva was also a bad decision. So it's a guy that, if it goes to the cards, he's hard to beat. He can be knocked out. That's the problem here. Shahbazyan's so fast. He's got so much power. He probably does finish Derek Brunson. But Brunson's got the tools to win this fight, man. Brunson has knockout power. Brunson has wrestling. Brunson has experience. I'm going to pick Shahbazyan. He's 14 years younger. That's something I can't overlook. He's undefeated. I can't overlook it. He looks like he's improving every fight. Can't overlook it. In a 3-round fight, I think Brunson's got a chance to win this fight, Cole. So to me, I would have loved to bet on Edmen Shahbazyan. I was hoping he'd be a smaller number. I can't bet on him at this price. I think there's probably some value in Derek Brunson at plus 270, Cole. I'll be honest. I kind of was thinking about picking him here just based on the line alone. But, Edmen's a guy I'm high on, man. I'm going to ride Edmen. I'm just saying, Cole, this could be the fight where he does lose and gets better from it, because Brunson's a guy, Cole, that's a great gatekeeper. He's the perfect guy because he can wrestle you and he can knock you out, but he can also be finished too, and you can look good against him. So love the fight, love the matchmaking here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Edmen won. All right, Cole, just a couple more things. We'll get out of here, 2 more minutes, Cole. 2 fight announcements that I want to talk about really fast here. 1 second. And we'll get out of here, Cole. So the 2 fight announcements were Johnny Walker against Ryan Spann and Kai Kara France against Brandon Royval. Give me your thoughts on these 2 fights.
The Walker Spann fight, I'm surprised they're doing just because Walker's on a 2-fight losing streak. I thought they would have tried to build him up more because Ryan Spann's a tough fight. If Ryan Spann wins that, all of a sudden Johnny Walker's 3 straight losses. What do you kind of do with them? I thought they would have gave him a more winnable fight. I don't think Ryan Spann's a winnable fight for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Walker knocked out Spann. I wouldn't be surprised if Spann knocked out Walker. It's a close fight. I think at this point, the UFC is trying to see which prospect do I put more stock into between Walker and Spann. Kai Kara France, Brandon Royval, that should be a great flyweight fight. Kai Kara France, I'm super high on. He has a ton of power at flyweight. Brandon Royval looked good in his win over Tim Elliott. There's obviously a new champion. You have no, for sure, number 1 contender. You have Moreno, Askarov, Perez. Whoever wins, Kara France, Royval might get a guy right below him, a Pantoja for me, or someone like that, just to get him right in there, the mix.
Yeah. I'm with you. I saw Dana White saying they have the next challenger for Figueiredo. I guess it's going to be Moreno, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I like that fight a lot. Should be a fun one. But the Walker Spann fight, I think, is a great fight. I'm just surprised they matched them up because they were prospects, but at the same time, sink or swim in the UFC, men. I'll take this last question from Marcus, but we're going to get out of here after that. David Blackburn, K and Brandon's going to be a fun fight. Yeah, that's a good fight. Royval is definitely solid, man. Marcus, last question, and we're going to get out of here, man. Do you know why Alexei Olenek left first-round management to go to Ali? There's a long history of issues with the Kawas. Cole knows about this more than I do, so any thoughts on this, Cole?
Fighters leave managers all the time, and managers offer to take less of their purse. They offer them more sponsorships. It's not surprising to see a lot of fighters leave. If you actually are paying attention, fighters leave managers. There's which don't even get talked about. Just with Ali, he likes to publicize every single time he gets a new client, but a lot of fighters leave managers fight to fight, and you wouldn't even really know.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think that's a pretty good answer there. Cole's pretty well connected to these guys, so I think he'd have a little bit more knowledge about that than me. Cole, I think that's it, man. I don't want to go too much longer, so I want you to plug everything you got going on right now, man.
At Twitter, AquashowNinety1. The podcast should be up today sometime. The Edmen Shahbazyan, Alex Perez, Calvin Cater. We'll have stories up on that. Talked to Vicente Luque for MMA News. That'll be up tomorrow. And then I also talked to Randy Brown for BJ Penn, which will be up soon as well. Or this week, Thursday, something like that. And fighter picks for Shahbazyan Brunson as well.
Yeah, good stuff. And definitely, follow Cole's podcast at BJ Penn. and I know he's doing some other videos as well. So definitely follow that stuff. You guys can follow me on Twitter at @AdamMartin. But most of all, just follow the podcast, man, and subscribe and tell your friends about it because we're trying to get the listenership up. Again, I think me and Cole do a really good job here. So we'd love to get more people joining in the chat, and we love everyone who's in there right now. Really appreciate it, guys. But we'd love to grow it even more. So podcasts available at YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to your podcasts. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Adam Martin, like I said, bjpen.com, MMAoddsbreaker.com, MMARings.net. Got some articles coming out this week. And Damon's in the chat saying Khabib and Justin. Yeah, we did talk about that at the top of the show. So go back and rewind. That was the first thing you mentioned. I can't wait for that fight. It's going to be a good one. Cole, that's it for today, man. I really appreciate you joining me as always, my man. And everyone who tuned into the chat and answered a question, we really appreciate it as well, guys. And if you're going to listen to it later on, hope you guys enjoy as well. Should be a good card. I'll be back Friday for the next edition of the podcast. Until then, have an awesome week, everyone. Bye.